have him. Chris, I was, I read this book in the probably the beginning of this year, maybe the end of last year. 10x is easier than 2x. I don't even remember who recommended it. And it really started to change my thinking about, am I thinking too small? What could we accomplish? And then Mark Penny called me this week. I don't know if he called you. I think he's calling everybody. And he called me and said, this 10x book that I'm reading is blowing my mind about what we can accomplish, if we lean our energy into scaling our business the right way. And he said something to me on Friday night. He said, this year it looks like you're going to do 100, 150 million. He said, you could do 1 billion a year. And we went over 1 billion a year ago in AUM, and I thought that was a big accomplishment. But like Nick said, a billion is a big accomplishment when you're just doing PACs and the average transfer is $20,000. But in this era that we live in, where you have people like Cody Beckett coming in and in 7 years building 100 million, all you need is 10 of those and you're doing 1 billion. And so, we started talking about this I don't know about you, Chris. It's such a unique moment to be in this business right now. And the thought of some of us could build a business here that does $1 billion a year. There's nothing stopping us. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I want to get your thoughts on that. And then we're just fortunate to have you on with us this morning. You're one of the greatest trainers. A lot of us grew up watching your training, even though I'm probably older than you. So thanks for being on, buddy.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure and an honor. So many of you that are on here that I respect. I see Bonnie and of course Bonnie and Ivan that I respect tremendously, and so many of you on here that I look up to. As far as mentioning Mark Penny giving you a call, Sherry and I listened to that book, audio book, maybe about a month ago. We got a hold of it, and yeah, it's a little bit hard for me to get my head around doing 1 billion a year, but that's the whole point. I mean, that's the whole point of that concept and that idea is that why not think exponentially bigger than we've thought before? And so, based on your text to me, Brad, and then us talking to Mark and listening to that book, I've incorporated some of that in my talk for today. So I guess I'll just jump right into it and share with everybody the thoughts that I have for today. First of all, I hope that you've all had a great year. I really do. I hope you've had a record-breaking breakthrough year. Sometimes that's the case, but the numbers aren't going to show up until a little bit later. All the work is done below the surface. And so if you don't feel like you've had a great year, don't be discouraged because things can turn around next year and they can turn around quickly in our business. We've all seen that. Things can turn around very, very quickly. Listen, stay positive, keep working, and keep giving. That's a very simple no-lose formula for everybody on here. All of us. If we just stay positive, no matter what comes our way, we keep working, keep our head down, and keep giving. Listen, man, error to the generous side. Those three things right there will serve us so well as leaders and as business people. And it's different than what a lot of people might think as a formula for winning in business, but it's served us very, very well over the past 26 years. And then the tide will turn. The other thing that I want people to know on here is that you are very valuable. Every rep on this call, you are very, very valuable. If you do the right thing for people, okay, and you don't cut corners, all right, let's make that assumption. No matter what type of business you're building, you're very, very valuable to your community and to this company and to your family. Okay, don't get caught up in thinking and comparing your business to somebody else's. Look, you can build one of three things here. You can build a client base, you can build a base shop, or you can build a hierarchy. All right, that's your choices. You can even narrow it down. You can build a client base, you can build a team, you can build both. I opted to build both over the years. Um, and if you keep your character intact along the way, whatever you build, it's a big, big win. And I want you to know that if you've decided that securities is your path, you're going to become great at it, then do that and be proud of that. And I'm grateful for my RVPs. I have some RVPs that recruit and are trying to build up teams. I have others that build extraordinary client bases. And I'm proud of all of them. All of the RVPs have changed their lives tremendously. That's what actually makes me the happiest is how much my teammates, my colleagues have changed their lives by getting good at this business. It's unbelievable. About 10 years ago, we had made a conscious decision to grow our securities business. I had received a call from the company. It was Chess Britt at the time. And Chess called me and said, "Hey, the company's kind of down this year with investments uh, across the board, but your business is up. What are you doing?" And I wasn't aware of that. I was just trying to build a business and take care of my family. So I said, let me give it some thought. Let me think about what we're doing, and I'll give me a week and I'll create an outline and I'll get back to you. And so I'm going to share that outline with you guys in a minute. But just to give you kind of a frame of reference, at that time when I got that phone call, we had 8 RVPs. We had about 200 million in AUM, and we had done about 25 million in total volume that year. So that was our business at that time. Well, today, now it's 10 years later, we have 16 RVPs, so we've doubled. It's not a huge number, but we were able to double that. Our AUMs are just over 900 million. So that was a 4x growth factor. And this year to date, as of yesterday, we're at 102 million in volume with those 16 RVPs. So that's a 4x factor. So we haven't 10x'd it, Brad, but now that I can get my head around it better and I can think about it, I think we could 10x in the next 5 years. That's what I'm thinking. And listen, I'll be honest, I'm just on the very cusp, the very front end of that belief setting in. Okay. I'm not saying I listened to the book and had a conversation, and yes, it's a process with me. All right. I'm working my way into it. It's going to involve sacrifice. It's going to involve getting outside the comfort zone again, and it's going to involve thinking different, tapping into power sources like you guys and whatever we can do, and going for it. But I'm starting to believe we can 10x it in the next 5 years. That would be an extraordinary situation in my view. Um, Even if we doubled it, here's the power of going for 10x. If you fall short and you triple or quadruple or 6 or 7 times what you got going on, it's big time. Um, so we always have to remember that the rule of 72 is working on our AUMs. Sometimes we forget that, right? So if you're a new rep and you're getting started and you want to get to 1 million, well, that million can easily become 2 million in just a few years, not including what you're adding to it. So don't underestimate that power of compounding as it works on our AUMs. So let me share this outline. This is what I submitted to the company. It's the foundation of how we did it. That's why I'm starting with it. And I'm going to go quickly on it, and then I'll give you some more details and break down some of the aspects in my time with you today. And I have shared this before, so if you've heard this from me, I have to apologize, I guess, because it hasn't changed though. It's like I wish I could come up with a whole new thing, but I guess I don't need to, do I? I mean, this is what we've been doing. This is what we do. If you're hearing it for a second or third time, and it's boring, I apologize in advance. I mean, so here's what I did with this outline. This is how, and I call this secrets to growing a securities business in any market. I broke it down into intangibles and tangibles. And I told Chess when I submitted, I said, look, it's going to be, I can't hold anything back. It's going to be what we do, and that's the way it is. So under the intangibles, the first one is that we pray for God's help and favor daily. It might not be your thing. I totally get it, but it's mine. And we wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have God's help. That's just how I view it. We got to a point with a few core leaders that we just said a simple prayer. We asked God to release the securities business to us. And this was about 2013 or so. At that time frame, I'm saying about 10 years ago. And it's clearly evident that that's what's happened. Um, we ask that God would connect us with the perfect clients where it's a win-win situation. That's the only thing I've ever been interested in is a win-win. I don't want to benefit if you lose. I'm not into that. And so that's happened. And that's enabled us to build tremendous relationships rather than just doing transactions and hustling to try to hit a goal. It's about the people. This is their life savings. Um, we pray against hindrances, and I've always prayed that God would protect our business. That's important. That's important to be protected. The second intangible is our attitude and the culture that we worked hard to create over the years. And I break that down into our attitude towards the industry. Um, People are getting ripped off, and it's up to us to fix it. It's just that simple. People are getting ripped off, or they're dealing with people that are incompetent, and it's up to us to fix it. God forbid we should lose a deal, lose a client over an incompetent liar. It's unacceptable to me that somebody would do business with someone who's deceiving them or is incompetent before they would do business with me. And we made that unacceptable in our organization. Um, we also have a certain attitude towards the market. We've never, since 2001, after 9/11 and that couple of real bad years in the market, and then heading into the financial crisis and then COVID, those would be the three big market situations that I've experienced. We changed our mindset after 2001. That volatility in the market is nothing but an opportunity. And a well-educated client will get excited about that. They won't be fearful. They won't run away. You won't lose them as clients. They'll actually be excited. And you might have to comfort them a little or remind them. That's part of a good review, reminding them. Well, that served us very, very well. And then the last piece of that is our attitude towards Primerica. Um, Either you believe that this is a company of destiny or you don't. If you believe it's a company of destiny, then you don't worry. You don't really worry about the regulatory changes. You don't really worry about the things that might affect a different company. And I truly, in my heart, believe that this is a company of destiny. It's not just a slogan on a brochure. I've seen too much evidence of it. And nothing else explains where we are today in relation to where we came from. And so I feel that Primerica has my back and the company will prevail. Now, that being said, there's always room for improvement. There's always the opportunity to share ideas and get better, all of us at every level. But I don't believe that that involves complaining. I just don't see how you can have a thankful heart and complain about the very thing you're supposed to be thankful for. Even if things are off and you got to work on something to make an improvement, we can do that stuff with a smile. I've basically, excluded myself from any type of bitching and moaning about the company. This opportunity changed my life, and I'm the one that's responsible for the work. I don't listen. I only really expect. This is just my attitude about it, guys. One thing from Primerica. I send in business, you process it, and you send me a check. Like that's all they owe me. Anything beyond that is a bonus. That's been my general attitude. Um, and so I think if we all felt that way, then we could obviously really work well together. I will never partner up with people to make improvements with the company who are mad and bitching all the time. I'll partner up with people that need changes made, people I respect, like Nick Terrian, for example. He's just a solid, level-headed guy. He's going to come up with solutions. But sometimes people are mad and they just want to complain. So anyways, the tangibles and how we grew our business over the past decade, my top priority was always training people to be professionals. Excuse me. In our business. And so your business can have a different centerpiece. Some people, their centerpiece is the op night, and that's kind of what their business is built on. That's one way to go. Other people, it's training, or it's the kitchen table itself. We focused on the kitchen table and training. That's how we did it, and it was my goal to have a team of professional people that could make a living for the rest of their lives and change their lives. And so that's how I filtered everything as we began to train and create the environment. Um, I think within training, the number one most important thing that we could ever train on is communication skills. Everything else is pretty static. Everything else is pretty much stays the same, but the communication is where we can get better and better and better and become more effective. If you get really, really good at professional communication, you never have to close anyone. It takes closing right off the table, the awkward way of what you might think of as, okay, I got to close these people. That's not how I view it at all. Last night I went on an appointment because somebody asked if I would come over to their house or get together with them and teach their teenagers about money. And I said, yes, of course I'll do that. Now, I could have justified probably staying home, sitting by the fire with my wife. But I left and I went to their house. And I taught their teenagers exactly with the same level of enthusiasm that I would go and talk to someone about $1 million rollover. The same level of communication, everything that I've always done. And the two teenagers learned a lot, and they invested 5,000 each. They each had 5 grand in their savings accounts. So you could say, well, that would hardly be worth your time, and I would disagree. I was happy to do that. I felt like it's even a moral obligation in a sense. Somebody wants to learn about money. I know about money. Of course, I'm going to take the time and teach them. It's not about me. But then the parents liked what they heard and they went and got their stuff. And I ended up completing another 170,000 in rollovers because I taught the kids about money. And this wasn't something I expected to do at all then last night. So that's my whole point there. It's about the communication. Be able to use the F&A. We trained weekly on investments. We held an annual securities meeting. I actually miss doing this. I haven't done this since I moved to Tennessee. I haven't done it in a few years, but for many, many years, certainly 15, what I would do every December is I would hold an annual investment meeting. And here were the parameters. You had to be investment licensed to be invited, or at least studying and had the U4 submitted and working towards it. And then what I did is and we would have anywhere from, I don't know, about 75 to 100 people in there. And then we set up the room from the first seat by volume for the year. And everybody sat based on that and went right to the back row, people with no volume. Everyone had their name and their volume on the chair. So there's no hiding. And you could move your way up year over year. The people in the back row, it said newbie. And you were lucky you got invited to the meeting. You got a seat in the back row. Pay attention and learn and listen. And then we would have best practices. And it was about a 3-hour meeting. Best practices, share what you're doing that's winning. So we had a competitive environment, but also a shared environment. There's no point in a competitive environment if it's cutthroat. But if you're willing to share with the people you're competing with and also help them win, man, that feels so much better. So we worked really, really hard at creating that situation. And I think that we pulled it off. You see somebody like Michelle Schauger coming out of that environment. You say, okay, that worked. Thank God that Michelle, plugged in and contributed and has gone on to do the great things that she's been doing. We developed strong relationships with wholesalers. We don't use them. We build relationships with them. We appreciate them. We don't expect them to always pay. I have a whole list of proper conduct on how to deal with a wholesaler if you're an RVP. And it also includes the wholesalers, some advice for them as to what we're looking for and what we need. And it's the perfect relationship if we're both doing that correctly. That helped us tremendously. And then we always tried to stay in the right market. Okay. I know 3 ways of getting to the kitchen table. I field trained a lot of people over the years, many, many people, built some wonderful clients from that process, lots of referrals and lots of workshops. That's how I got to the kitchen table. Social media wasn't part of the deal at that point. And so congratulations to you guys that have figured that out. Um, if you want to find the way that I've trained people on communication historically, you can go on POL, you can go to training and development, and then search Builder's Guide. And what will come up is the complete Builder's Guide to Securities. That's a thing that we put together. And it has everything in there that I think somebody would need to master the communication side of our securities business. It's all in there. But for the new people that are on here today, I'm going to go through some of the most important aspects of that. It won't be everything, of course, but I'm going to take probably, you guys give me, if it's good, Brad, 30 minutes from now to go through, okay, some of the key things that are in that training that I've found the most helpful for, for myself and for our team. One thing that I would say to those of you that are interested in building other people, that are interested in transferring what you know. I try to keep things simple. What I would do is I would go out in the field. This is very early on. Do some appointments, and let's say they went well. I got the job done. I would just simply ask myself afterwards, what did I do? Even if it was coming naturally, let's say, because some of you are incredibly talented, things just come naturally. Well, it might not be the case for everybody, but they can learn. And I figured that out kind of early, like, okay, I kind of knew what to say. I could maybe come up with an analogy on the spot and the people got it and it worked out pretty good. All right, well, what if I was to just do that again on purpose over and over again? What if I was to take that successful single appointment and I was to put it into steps and then offer it to the team, train the team in that way and say, look, try it this way, see if this works for you. It's worked for me. Look at that. That's all I really did. And then people, of course, they get real good and they become better than you and they add their own stuff to it. But I was giving people at least an initial track to run on. And so that's what I'm going to share with you now. Um, if if I heard a noise in the engine of my car, didn't sound right. And I thought, oh, something's not right here. And I went around and popped the hood. I don't know what I'm looking at. All right. I have no idea. I'm not going to be able to assess that unless there's a screwdriver in the engine and I can see it. I can change the windshield washer fluid, and that's just about it. I am not a mechanic, let alone a master mechanic. But if I take that car down to a master mechanic and most likely he or she, they're going to pop the hood and they're going to say, oh, they run a few tests, but they know what they're looking at. They've seen it before. They know what it's supposed to look like versus what it does look like. Well, I can do that with investment statements. I can look at someone's investment statements and in probably 30 seconds or less, I can tell if they were dealt with honestly and fairly. And I can tell if they were dealt with competently. Keep that in mind. I know by looking at that because I've studied it, because I've put the time in, right? So I got thinking about that and say, well, wait a second. If our folks could look at an investment statement and right away know if that person needs help or not, because we don't move money just to move it, we have reasons, and then they could clearly communicate that to them, there's no limit to the amount of business that we can do. There's no limit to the amount of families that we can help. So that's what I set out to do is let's become master mechanics. Let's know what we're looking at. That's where it starts with, because normally if people aren't trained, they pick up an investment statement and they look at it and they don't know what they're looking at. So they just put it away, and they don't deal with it. And that's a tragedy. You know how much money is left on the table by reps that are only doing life insurance? Oh my God. So you have to have a set of criteria that you can filter things through. When that mechanic looks at the engine, he knows the basics right away to look at, right? So let me share with you what I've always called the five fundamentals. Like your check engine lights on, you got to take a look, you got to see what it is. Um, Here's what I think of when I'm looking at statements, when I'm looking at a client situation to see if it's a good fit and to see if I can help them and how I communicate that. Okay. Number one is that people don't need products, they need a strategy. So when I look at someone's situation, I see if they just own a bunch of financial products and have no idea how they work, and if those financial products are disjointed. So they've purchased them from all different places, but there's no cohesive strategy. There's never been a target set for that family, and then steps on how to hit that target. That's the case with most people who have investments. Secondly, my next fundamental is that people must protect their money from taxation, inflation, and market fluctuation. And we could add fees. And I know it's quirky for me to say it that way, but I say it that way so people could remember it and they could get it. So when I tell that to a client, they think, they think, wow, is my money protected against these three things? And then I'll break it down further. Of course, taxes are taxes. Inflation. I was saying that for years before it was a thing. Now it's a thing. And so I say the losing buying power over time. Have you experienced this, Mr. Client? Yes, of course, we all have. And then market fluctuation, the ups and downs of the economy. That's all that means. And so I tell people, look, there are very specific things that we can do to protect your money from these three things. And if we don't do them on purpose, if we don't do them intentionally, these things will take your money. They will erode it from the bottom up, and you'll have less money than you should. And so now people are thinking, well, wait a second, where am I exposed? And then I can say something very simple, like looking at a particular account. Hey, this money's exposed to taxation. There's no tax hedge on this. It's in a CD, right? What if we could get it protected from all three instead of two out of the three, or so on, like that? It's very simple. Then who doesn't say, yeah, of course. No, I'd rather have exposure to these problems and not be protected. Nobody says that. Number three, we must organize our assets into short-term, mid-term, and long-term accounts. We must organize our assets into short-term, mid-term, and long-term accounts. Now this gives us some structure. So you start to see how this might sound, and I'm going to wrap this into a conversation with the client in a minute so you can hear what it sounds like. We must play offense and defense. That's number 4. And the way that I explain this is twofold. I use sports as a correlation. I say, hey, look, if we only play offense, then we will score, but if the other team has a better offense, we won't win. If we only play defense and the other team has, then we can't put points on the board, we won't win. We won't score, right? So we have to play offense and defense in our investment accounts. But the mathematical way that I explain it, I say, listen, here's why. Money takes twice as long to come back as it does to go down. I said, let me give you an example. If you've got 100 grand in an account and you get a negative 50% rate of return one year, how much money do you have? And I ask these in conversational, in a conversational way, and I make them answer. I don't answer for people. Even on mathematical questions, I let them answer because then I know they get it. They say 50,000. And I say, that's correct. I say, let's say you're optimistic And the next year rolls around and you say, well, I think I'll get a positive 50% return this year and get my money back. And I say, is that true? And so many people say yes. And I say, no, it's not true. And I have them do the math. They say, we're only going to have 75,000, right? Because 50% of 50 is only 25. So it takes multiple good years to make up for a bad year. Well, now people are starting to realize, wait a second, this is very different this sounds different than anyone that's ever talked to me before. That's my goal. If two advisors have access to the same mutual fund companies and the same wholesalers, and they can build the same portfolios, or they have access to the same managed account, opportunities, the same annuities, well, then what's going to differentiate you? It's your skill sets and your communication. It's your character. It's your follow-up. It's how much you care. Even if the other person might have more experience or more time in. Hear me clearly, the new folks on here. Listen, when I started, I looked really, really young. I would go on appointments and people would walk. I had a guy walk into the kitchen when I was there waiting for him at his kitchen table. And his wife had let me in and he came out. And first thing he said, he didn't even greet me. He said, how old are you? And I said, how old do I look? Right? I'm not going on the defensive. He said, man, you look like you're 18. And I said, no, I'm older than that. Thank you so much for the compliment. I'm 29. But let me ask you a question. Obviously, it sounds like that's a concern. What's more important to you, age or experience? And he said, well, experience. And I said, good. I've got 10 years worth of experience crammed into 1 year. Let me show you what I can do, and then you can decide from there. And it just became almost like a joke, right? And so you can be confident and be new. That's my point. Because when I opened my mouth and started sharing some of these, things and principles and what I could do, my confidence won them over. It didn't matter that I was a new person. Keep that in mind. Don't let yourselves, if you're new, think you have to have a certain amount of assets or anything to go in and do a great job. And never forget, there's only two kinds of appointments you're ever going to go on anyway. The ones you learn from and the ones you make money on. There is nothing else. There's no good appointment, bad appointment. If you don't make money, you've got things to learn, and that's valuable because you can carry those lessons for the rest of your life. If you close business and make money, you probably didn't learn that much. That's okay. Different purpose. All right, so back to my 5 fundamentals. We said people don't need a product, they need a strategy. That's music to people's ears. We must protect our money from taxation, inflation, and market fluctuation, the things that could take it. We have to do that on purpose. We should organize our assets into short-term, mid-term, and long-term accounts. Okay. We have to play offense and defense because of the way it works when money goes up and down. And then the fifth fundamental that my whole investment business is built on is we must understand why we move money. So under this point, this is how you can get to the point where when you look at a statement, you don't go blank or you don't know if how to help the client. Okay. And you can train on this in your offices extensively. All right. Here's the reasons why we move money. All right. Number one, it's in the wrong vehicle. So it's in the wrong type of account to achieve their objective. You don't save for retirement with CDs. Okay. For example. So when you ask people what the purpose of a certain account is or how they obtained it or what can you tell me about this account, and they don't have good answers or the answers don't line up with what you know about which vehicles to use to achieve those goals, now you have a reason to move that money. That's legitimate. The second reason is there's no strategy at all. I'll move people's money if it's all over the place, like we're talking about, and I can get it down and organize it and get it into a strategy. I'll move money for that reason. I'll move money if the fees are too high, if they're being taken advantage of on their fees. I will move money for poor service and I will move money for poor performance. But keep in mind, the reality is you live by the sword and die by the sword. So if you move people's money for performance and service and you don't provide better performance and better service, they're going to move the money again. And they should, right? They should. So keep that in mind. But those are the reasons why I would move money. Outside of that, if someone's in a good situation, I'm going to tell them they are. I'm committed to that. Um, and so those things become our filter. So we filter now our decisions and the things we say, our conversation through those things right there. Um, so when you're looking at a statement, where are the clues if they've been dealt with, improperly or whatever? Well, you can look at the company that the investments are with. And I won't name any on here, but we all know certain companies suck and they train their people to deceive people. We got a hold of a training piece from one company one time, big one, you know the name, and one of their statements they were making to their advisors was if they cry, they buy. So they were being trained to upset people and get them riled up, and then they would keep their money there or not make any changes. That is an awful, unethical way to go about things. Obviously, none of us would dream of that. But those companies are out there, and you'll get a feel. The more you come across them, you'll know which companies where at large their reps are incredibly arrogant. God, I wish I could say names right now. I've come across certain ones where every rep that I ever came across with was a jerk. He was a jerk to the client. He thought he was this or that, strutting. I mean, I've seen him in their offices. I could tell you stories. You know, other companies where they just all they care about are their own quotas. They don't care at all. It's no different in the investment business than it is in the life insurance business when it comes to this. And then you know other companies that are out there that are not bad. Not every company is bad or evil. We're not the only good one. And then within companies, you have sometimes the reps are bad, but it's a good company. Well, you get a feel for this. So I'm going to look at that right away and I'm going to make a statement about that to the client. I'm going to tell them what my experience is. And then you can look at share class. You can look at whether they're diversified. You can look at if it's just a fund that's just like a target date thing and it's just the money was thrown into that, a big chunk, six figures into one target date fund and call it a day. What a lazy ass way that is to go about helping people with their money. We don't do that. We don't do that. I'm not opposed to those funds being offered in 401ks for people that might not get the education. I think they serve a purpose, but not when you're dealing with somebody like us who knows what they're doing. We can build a portfolio. We can do better than that. So those are the things I'm looking for. And then I'm able to clearly explain to the folks the facts about those, right? You get how this is starting to kind of come together. How do you think it sounds to a client if you say, hey, listen, I have a couple core philosophies. I'd just like to share those with you up front as we explore if this is going to be a good fit to work together. I sure hope it is. I'd love to be the person to help you. But I do have some fundamentals that I stick to no matter what. In fact, probably the number one thing is, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I believe that you don't need to buy any more financial products. You probably have enough. I think what you probably do need and what you want would be a strategy. What if we can set a target and we can help you get there? Like that type of thing sets a whole different tone than somebody coming in and immediately beginning to pitch a company or a particular fund or something that they had in their head when they already walked in the door because they have to hit a quota. Okay. And then you start to talk to people and you say, like, there's three things we really need to protect our money against. And you lay it out. It's clear. You can't disagree with it. I call these things trust statements. And I just made that up, but a trust statement. So let me give you a few examples because as you become a professional communicator, your goal is to simply have a conversation with an agenda. That's what it is. your goal as you become a true pro in the investment business is not to give a presentation. There's times to give presentations, recruiting presentation. There's times to give those and they can be valuable, but not when it comes to people's investments, in my opinion. I think you have to have a conversation as a pro. That is the goal. That's what changes it all. That's what separates you from network marketing feel. None of us want that. I don't want that. Again, there's a time and place for certain things, but if you come to my house with a flip chart to talk about my life savings, I'm going to be kind to you and respectful and listen, but I'm not going to do business with you. I'm sorry. It's too important. I just feel like you're getting started. You're an amateur and you got to start somewhere, but you got to own this stuff, guys. Okay. And it's not that hard and you can do it. So here's 5 trust statements that I prepared for this talk today. Things I've said to clients, and you can physically see them getting it. You can see the coin drop, okay? You can see their body language change and it becomes very appealing to them when you talk to them this way. So these are just 5 that I've used extensively over the years, okay? Number 1 is my job is to get you what you want in the wisest way possible. My job is to get you what you want in the wisest way possible. Boy, how can you disagree with that? Doesn't that start to build a foundation of trust? In other words, what I'm saying by saying it that way is I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you your priorities. I'm not an order taker, but I'm here to help you get what you want in the wisest way possible. So what that does is it drops the defenses. The best scenario where I've used this is when people already have a large sum of money and they're looking for someone to help them manage it. Most advisors are going to go in and they're going to start to tell people what they can't do, what they shouldn't buy, what they shouldn't spend money on. I don't take that approach. I would ask them right up front, so what do you want to buy? What do you want to buy? Let's say you came into a pile of money. Because I've sat with clients that have come into money, whether it's an inheritance. I've actually sat with a couple of lottery winners over the years, different things like that. Most common would be an inheritance, and they get this money. And I say, so what do you want to buy? Because that's what they're thinking about. And then I listen. And then I'm going to say, wow, that's exciting. Well, my job is to help you get what you want in the wisest way possible. So are you open to some ideas on how to get that new car, but do it in the wisest way possible? And I get their permission. I guess, yes, of course, great. Well, let's talk about this strategy or that strategy or whatever. And I've done that with people over the years, and it's worked out really, really well. The statement that I've already made 3 or 4 times, people don't need a product, they need a strategy. That is a trust statement. In my view, that's something that you can't disagree with. How about this one? Let's set a target and then let's get you there by taking the least amount of risk possible. Let me break this down for a minute and tell you how effective this has been for me. Let me repeat it. And I always like to start out when I'm communicating with people, is like say, oh, let me share this idea with you and you tell me how you think about it, what you think about it, or how you feel about it. So if I was gonna talk to my buddy Scott Fletcher, I'd say, Scott, I got an idea. Let me share this with you if I could, and then you tell me how you feel about it. That's such an open way to communicate. That's so non-confrontational. What you have to say about what I'm about to say is valuable to me. Even if I'm trying to guide you to a conclusion, I'm still going to start that way. So if I said to a client, let me share this with you, if I could, you tell me how you feel about it. It's just a good preface for a lot of things. What if we set a retirement target for you? Okay. Which is a date and a number. Let's set this number. And then let's work on a plan to get you there by taking the least amount of risk possible. Because what stresses people out about their money? Okay. Well, I have enough and the ups and downs along the way, the news, the emotion, all that. If we went by logic and facts, we would put X amount of dollars in a certain fund or portfolio. We would leave it alone till the date and we would have X amount of dollars. And we wouldn't ever think about it in between. But is that how people function? No. That's why I'm not the least bit concerned about AI taking over my ability to go sit with a client and put them at ease and talk to them about their goals and dreams and adapt to the changes. Yeah, you might be able to get some data, but people need people, and that's a reality. I said this to a client. Let's set a target, and how about we get you there taking the least amount of risk possible? And he was like this. Oh, well, that sounds good. I said, yeah, let's do that then. So we came up with the numbers. It was whatever it was. This was years ago. It was a couple million that he needed. And we set about calculating the return that he would need to hit that couple million and not be stressed out along the way. How much he'd have to add to his accounts because he was working. And it was like 15 years ago, and we exceeded that. And he was never nervous. He told me at least 5 times over the years, I'm so glad we didn't try to take more risk. I'm so glad we took this approach. I'm so glad I don't have to worry about the market. I'm so glad we're protected about this stuff. He's golfing, he's having fun, stress-free, and we hit the target. So take that off the table for people. And you're appealing to the emotion that drives the decisions to work with you and to stay the course and these important things. When crazy things happen in the news, different elections have happened over the years. He didn't move his money. He didn't call me panic stricken. I wasn't putting out fires. We were already on the target. Other people, sometimes you might have to get back with them and just simply remind them of all the things you put into the strategy from the beginning. And that's why you don't have to change anything. We just have to stay the course. And then another trust statement, my last one is I stick to the fundamentals and I err to the conservative side. For me, getting my investment license in December of 99, one of the worst times you could ever get one, which means I started helping people invest in the first quarter of 2000, and then the dot-com bubble burst. That was trial by fire. That was learning how to err to the conservative side. And from that point, we made some adjustments. And in 2008 to 2010, we didn't lose any clients. I did not lose one personal client because they were at ease. We talked. I'm not saying their accounts didn't go down or we didn't talk. I'm saying I didn't lose any. And listen, I'll give you guys this advice, especially if you're new. When tough times hit and there's volatility and there's different things, be proactive. Make the outgoing call. Don't put your friggin' head in the sand and don't hope that people don't call you and you can ride it out that way. Stand up straight, look people in the eye, call them up, talk about the tough things, remind them of what you've done and what you can do, remind them of the goal, remind them of their time horizon, the quality of the investments you've chosen, and just reaffirm that they made the right choice choosing you and you know what you're doing and you're not afraid. You know how many accounts you'll pick up in those times? Oh my God, because the other jerks are doing all the wrong things, not returning calls, they're scared, they're sucking their thumb. We get so many referrals in the tough times. It's easy to pick up investment dollars when the market's rip roaring. A real pro, you'll pick them up when things are bad. All right, a couple more things I'll wrap up. I've taken too much of your valuable time already here. Here's a couple things that have also served me well. I was just trying to think, different scenarios that everybody here might come across here in the new year with this giant wall of wealth and all the money that's moving in the larger amount. Here's a good way to approach larger sums. Don't think you have to get the whole deal, that it has to be all or nothing. I think that's a faulty way of thinking. If I'm talking to someone who has large six figures or seven figures amounts, and they're considering making a change, I've gotten in front of them, I'm field training, whatever the case, referral, and they start to hesitate a little bit, I'll go for half of it. If I sense that, I'll say, hey, listen, I have an idea. Let me share this with you, and you tell me how you think about it, what you think about it. I'll say, what would be the harm in having two professionals looking after your assets? And this is if they haven't been taken advantage of, or there's no compelling reason, like they're just, they agreed to let you look at it or something along those lines, or they want to do part of it themselves. There's that. I don't have an all or nothing mentality when it comes to this. I say, what if I worked with half and you work with half, keep doing what you're doing, or, so and so, if it's a relative, whatever the case, everything has happened. And then we'll just work together. You'll have two sets of eyes on it, and I'll handle this portion, and so can handle that portion. And usually I've picked those deals up, and then they've ended up moving all of it with me either quickly or over time. I could give you several stories of how that's happened. One I'll give you in particular. This gentleman had about 600 grand, and I was proposing a solution to him, and he was managing it. He was smart. He's the owner of an engineering firm, so he's no dummy. And it took 6 months of following up every month. Another little lesson there. Every month I'd call him. Would you get any more thought where we stand? Just a good professional follow-up. No pressure, just a little persistence, permission to follow up. And he always kept putting me off. After the sixth month, I said, look, we've been in this process now for about 6 months. What do you think of this idea? What if you give me 300 to work with and I implement the strategy that I've been sharing with you? Because you obviously see that there's value in it. And you handle the other 300 and we'll just work together on it. And I'll handle maybe a little more of the conservative side and you can do your thing with your stocks. And he said, okay, that sounds good. Come in and see me. He was a couple hours away. So we set a time. I went to see him. As soon as I got there, we sat down, we caught up a little bit. And he said, I've been thinking, you could just handle the whole thing. I'm too busy anyways. But if I never proposed the half approach, I never would have maybe got back in the door like that. And so that worked out really well. And I said, great, I'll take good care of you. And I did it. And I've had that same thing happen where there's been another advisor who wasn't necessarily doing a bad job, but they didn't propose some of the things that I came up with. And the people they said, let's both work on it. I don't know. That seemed to work out pretty good for me. Last thing I'll share, you can use this as you see fit. When it comes to our money, we all have two things. We have our philosophy, which is how we think and feel about money. And we have our habits, which is how we handle money. And don't forget that the people you're going to sit with, whether they're just starting out or they have some money or they have a lot of money, it applies to them. And their philosophies may be incorrect. They may be off. I know when I started in Primerica, I had some philosophies about money that were passed on to me from other broke people. I didn't want them. I didn't know that I had them necessarily, but they started to get purged out when I started getting, the opportunity to replace them with better philosophies. And then I had my habits about money, which weren't great when I was 28, 29. And the thing is, if you don't have money to handle, you can't really have good habits usually. So this is what we're up against. The ideas of building portfolios and do you go with managed and do you go with retail and when do you use annuities, all that stuff is pretty simple and easy to figure out. And there's more than one way to do it that are all correct. They're all good. When we look at the choices we have, we're not necessarily choosing between a good option and a bad option. We're just choosing between two good options. So no need to argue over which way you go. Find what works for you and go for it and do it. The real work is breaking through the philosophies and the habits or lack thereof of the people we're dealing with. And the only way you can do that is to come alongside them, serve them, and be able to professionally communicate your ideas and thoughts and these concepts. Again, if you find that on POL, hopefully you'll find that helpful. That's why we put it out there. We like to hear when people are winning and doing well in our company. So, my pleasure and honor to spend some time with you today. Back over to you, Brad.
Chris, unbelievable. I was kind of emotional during some of this because, I just love this business so much. A couple quick things, and then we got to go. I know we got an FAC and IAC call starting in just a couple minutes, but for everybody wondering, uh, I'm going to take this video, this recording, and get it to compliance. And I think it's all good. There's nothing in there that is non-compliant, and I'm going to get them to approve it. They might have to throw a disclosure, something on the back end. We want to get this available to everybody. Chris, we'd love to have, as we start thinking about 10xing our businesses and you going to 10 billion and me going to 10 billion and the company going to a trillion, which is available in the market, as we start thinking about this, this kind of training that you delivered, this communication skill training is really, I think, the most valuable training that people have versus product training. But I want to ask you a question as we close. You made a comment in the beginning about negative people, complainers, and we've all been around them. And in 2016, I found myself surrounded by a whole bunch of people that didn't like Primerica. They were here, they were making money, but they just didn't like the company. And I realized if I'm going to move ahead, I have to get those people out of my life. And what you look at people like yourself who could go anywhere. You could go to any company tomorrow. And some people say, "Oh, Chris, you could make more money at another company." Why is Primerica? I mean, I asked Howard Lashner the same thing, but why is Primerica the best home for you to build your business?
Yeah. Um, well, first of all, and I've said this many times over the years, look, you could offer me double, triple the money to go somewhere else, and I wouldn't take it because I'm not here only for the money. And if somebody's here only for the money, I feel kind of bad for them because they got to sort some shit out first in their head because there's way more to a big life than a big income. A big income's part of it. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I saw the opportunity to build a big life here in Primerica. And I don't see that
Mhm.
in available with other places. It's just not the same because culturally, I love that I'm able to do this the way I see fit at my pace, in my way. Um, I've never taken a call from home office asking me to work harder or work more or do anything like that. So that true freedom, the impact, the relationships. I would never leave all my brothers and sisters in Primerica to go chase a few more dollars. Um, I don't know. Primerica is the one that gave me a shot. Why would I use them and then think I can progress on from here? That makes no sense. I'm grateful. I'm thankful that Primerica said yes to me, and they've done nothing but support me. Why would I ever need to go anywhere else? I believe in the company. I believe in the cornerstones and the rebar that's in the foundation of Primerica too much to trade it for something inferior.
Yeah, I love it. I got so many pages of notes. Now I'm going to convert them to PowerPoint and and use them. Amazing training this morning. Thank you so much. I don't want to put you on the spot here. I'll put you on the spot later. But having Chris Royce as a quarterly guest to just do this, especially for people who are struggling and newer in the business, I think would be incredibly powerful in helping them succeed. And so, but I don't want to put you on the spot right now, but I'll just keep bugging you. So, thanks so much for your time. I know we're out of time. A bunch of us have to get on to another call with the company. Eldon, I'm just going to turn it over to you and we're going to hop off. Thanks, bud.
Hey, thank you, Chris. That was just absolutely amazing. You know what? You are a true champion, and this is something that people should listen to and put it in your car and have it as your podcast that you listen to daily, because these are the fundamentals that everybody needs. I just want to thank everybody. Jump on early for the pregame show. We start a pregame show at 10-15 minutes before. And if you aren't jumping on, jump in and get into the waiting room. And when we click the go live button, it'll be 10-15 minutes before. And then we generally run a panel with different people and different questions. And it just it's random every week. But the stuff that you will pick up, the nuggets from the different leaders inside the panel, are just incredible. So thank you for the panelists that are willing to participate in that side of things. And it's the panelists that are answering the questions on the chat side, and we try to get to them. If not, get your people on Telegram. If they're not on Telegram, find somebody that is on Telegram. We'll get you the link. And so anyways, we really appreciate everybody jumping on. We believe it's the most powerful, best training inside of the company, leaders training leaders. And so thanks to Home Office for allowing us to do this. Go have a fabulous, fantastic, great rest of the week, and make sure you put this stuff into practice. We'll talk to you all later. Take care.